And Miles, since you have so much experience looking at different learning systems, based on your knowledge of this industry, what are some of the key factors that organizations should consider when implementing a new learning system?
We spent quite a lot of time with Simon and his peers in the leadership team and representatives of the sort of the learners as well, to understand what does this mean in their lives and in the organization, what role will it play, so that you're really clear that you're going to market for something that's going to add to the organization and to the business. That might be a system, but not just to think about systems implementation, to think about business change, which is essentially what you're doing. And I think then from that gives you a sense of, what are the most important roles that this system needs to play. And as you were saying earlier, what's the information and the data, the signals of success that you can expect to see, so that you've got a sense of, where to see that value being added, and also where, how to respond where it's not being added. So I think those are some of the really important things, to think about in advance before you do go to market, and also before you kick off an implementation as well. And then I think it builds on partnership, clarity of roles and responsibilities, communication, etc. It's really to start with those broader goals that describe the value of the system, rather than just diving into what the technology needs to do, feature sets, project plans, etc. I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, so Miles, from your research, can you share some best practices for sustaining engagement in learning programs and keeping people engaged in the learning system and wanting to come back to learn more?
I think the most important thing is to understand what engagement looks like in your context. That might be more or less behavior. It might be consumption of content, or, as Simon was describing, it's probably more about activity with other people as well, and sort of participation over time. And some activities, not as healthy as others. As Simon said, 2 a.m. on a Monday is perhaps not the kind of engagement you want to encourage. So I think you need to be clear about what does good engagement look like for us, given the goals we're trying to achieve. And I think in Simon's case, for Lambda Chi, that's very much more about participation than just consumption. It was about sort of sharing and conversation, rather than just sort of completion activity. So it's being a bit more subtle with those data signals. I think the most important thing though is that engagement isn't kind of something you should do. You need to make this part of the responsibility of the team that are running the program, and it needs to be part of the way you work as you design it, but also as you roll it out. You don't work on engagement at the end of a particular milestone or whatever. You work on engagement all the way through, and you build engagement over time. As it's part of how you work. And I think as well, I think one of the really useful things, and the leaderboards are probably one good way of doing this, but you also reflect back to learners, what does their engagement look like and why is that good? So again, that might help you to reinforce what healthy engagement looks like, or what more positive engagement looks like, but make sure that it's clear, to your community of learners or to the individuals, what does engagement look like, and show them that.
And with the leaderboard, you can get points for whatever you want in there. We really want these young men to have that social learning experience. The leaderboard is, in my view, is a great invention, because it just captures that sense of competition. People like to win. People like to be seen that they're doing well. And the more that we engineer that social learning experience, the better.